So hi guys, my name is Chitra Rangan. I'm the grad coordinator. So you've met me before. So welcome to the graduate program at in physics. And I just wanted to do a very quick overview and an orientation, so you we're all on the same page as to what expectations are and things like that. And we will also be sending you this graduate handbook by email, but it is 30 pages long, and you may just skim through it. So I just want to point out the main highlights, the things that you need to be paying attention to. Okay, so so in case you probably already know this, but we have, so in our department you'll be interacting with the head of department, that's Dr. Razy, myself as grad coordinators, who you'll have the most contact with, and then in terms of support personnel, you have the departmental administrator, Kimberly, as well as Danielle, who is also an assistant secretary. So Danielle did a lot of the formatting and contributing to developing this grad handbook as well. So you already have graduate advisors, so we don't really need to go through that. In case you don't know, there are three main areas of research. We have atomic, molecular, and optical physics, material science, and biomedical physics. Those are the three main areas of research, and the current new students in the physics department are sort of spread over all three areas. We have a bunch of graduate research supervisors, not only those who are in the department, but also we have people from other departments who can supervise graduate students here. So if you may not know this, we have a master's program in physics and a PhD program in physics. But in the master's program, you can complete it with 3 plans. And basically, both of you who are here, and actually all the 4 students who are here, have chosen the thesis plan to complete a master's, which is usually typically a 2-year program. And the intention is that you're interested in doing research in physics, and that's what drove you to doing this master's. So and then by the end of the thesis, you can you're qualified to either get a job and in the research and development, or you can choose to go for a PhD. If you wanted to go for a PhD, this is the route to go. There are other 2 options also. There's a major paper plan, which is a 1-year option where you don't do a full thesis, but you write a major paper on a particular subject. And this is usually students who are not yet sure about doing research. They know they want to do something more in physics, but they're not yet committed to the research goal. And then the coursework plan is usually for students who are using the degree as a way to further their careers. It could be a person who wants to be a teacher, and so they want to move up the salary scale, or you want to work in the industry and again move up the salary scale with higher qualifications. And so that the coursework plan has no research component to it. And I'll skip over the Master of Science qualifying year because it doesn't apply to you guys. There's also the PhD program, and the PhD program, you can apply to it either after a master's, or you can apply while doing a master's, or in exceptional circumstances will take students who have just finished their bachelor's degree. And what do we mean by exceptional circumstances? It's basically students who have excellent undergraduate marks. They've been doing research for at least a year, and they are far enough along that we know they will be successful in the PhD. So those are the programs that we have. I have no idea why this thing is becoming so changing. I'm not going to go through application procedures because you already are here. The place that you should go to for any university regulation are these web pages. So that's the graduate calendar. That will give you the broad regulations, and then the grad handbook you can use as a supplement to understand the details, because this can be pretty vague, and then the specifics you can get from the calendar, from the handbook. Now in terms of course requirements for the thesis plan, which all of you are in, so I'll just go only through this one. You're expected to do a seminar every semester, every fall and winter that you're registered. That is the Physics 8000. You're expected to be enrolled in the thesis course every semester until you graduate. And then you should take 3 more physics courses at the 8000 level or higher, one of which has to be the 8100, Physics 8100, which must be taken in the first fall that you register in. So in this fall, you will all be registering for Physics 8100, which is Advanced Quantum Mechanics 1, and you have to register in it and get a grade in it. That's one of the requirements. And then we would like you to take the other 2 courses in the first year itself, so that you have the whole of the second year only to do research. Okay. Now, again, you probably know the cost of study by now because you've paid your first tuition already. So for domestic students, the tuition plus fees is approximately $8,550. For international students, it's close to about $27,000. And the cost of living in Windsor for a single person is approximately $1,000 a month. And so, of course, if you live at home, if you can really make huge savings on that. And if you can, if you can save on rent, you can save on Wi-Fi, which is a lot. Food, so that really helps. In terms of financial support, it really varies by student. So what the department tries to do is to make sure that we provide enough support that a domestic student will be able to survive, will be able to live, so they can afford the fees and the living expenses. So for example, a master's thesis student, some combination of the GA, RA, entrance scholarship should lead you to about $21,765. That's what we aim for. Now there are many variables in that, so if you lose your entrance scholarship, that is something that we cannot, I mean, if you started out with entrance scholarship and then you lose it because your grades are not high enough, then we may not be able to top up that amount. So, so those issues are always there, but in general, we try to support the student as long as they're satisfactorily progressing towards a degree. If you win external scholarships, you get higher support, and there's an appendix to this which kind of talks about sample funding packages. You will see that not every student gets the same amount, but this is sort of a minimum that we try to provide so that everybody is not stressed out financially, and you can devote all your energy to doing a really good thesis. Now, so the thing is that whenever we talk about financial aids, there are usually three sources of funds that come. So one is the entrance scholarship. The entrance scholarship is usually a competition. So if you have a minimum of 80% entering average, you get into the competition, and then the grad studies decides who gets an entrance scholarship and who doesn't. And that for master's students, I believe, is about $3,500 a year, something like that. And so that amount of money comes from grad studies, from the university itself. And then you have the graduate assistantship, which is actually a job. So you do a job for the department, right? So the job for the department is that you basically work as a TA or a GA for particular courses that the department assigns you, and you are responsible to the department, aka the department head, and Kimberly as his designate, to complete your jobs and duties in a timely fashion. So GA is a job. The entrance scholarship is a scholarship. Scholarship basically means no strings attached. As long as you keep your marks up, you get it. GA, you have to do the job for which you're paid. You normally should work for 140 hours. You will get 140 hours of work per semester, and you're not supposed to work for more than 10 hours a week in that. So I think we manage fairly well to keep within that limit. And if you go to the GATA orientation that's right after this meeting, they will tell you more details about that. So the GATA, all the duties, the amounts of money, everything is determined by the collective agreement between the GATA union and the university. So if you want to know more about those rules, you should you should go to that orientation. And then lastly is a research assistantship. The research assistantships comes from the professor's grant money. So in many departments, in many departments, the research assistantships are not guaranteed. So in some departments it's zero in science. In other departments it's $4,000, like computer science gives PhD students $4,000 a year as a research assistantship. So physics and chemistry are the two departments that really support the students. So in the sense that we provide a lot of research assistantship with the aim that the students will spend a lot of time doing the research. Okay. I mean, that's not to say the other students don't. They also do it, but we support our students more. And then, of course, we encourage you to apply for external scholarships. Usually, the criteria for getting an external scholarship is that your GPA should be, in the last 2 years, should be 80%. So if it is more than that, by all means, apply for a scholarship. We encourage everyone who has that GPA to apply, and we will push hard to try to get you the support you need. Okay, so time limits to completion. So the thing is that for a master's student, you have to be registered full-time for 3 semesters before you're allowed to graduate. Okay, so usually that's the fall, winter, summer. And then if you're a thesis student, you also will do about 6 terms or so. Typical times to completion is about 2 years. So if you start in the fall, usually by June or July of 2 years from now is when you defend your thesis, and then you can graduate. But the maximum time that you are allowed to get is about 3 years. So that's after 3 years, it becomes really hard to justify why you haven't gotten a degree, and then people want the department has to justify why you should stay in the program. Okay, so so what we would like to do is to make sure that you all graduate within that 2-year time frame, and in a timely way. Okay, so doctoral program. You can also, one of the things that students can do is also, master students can ask to transfer to a PhD. That is, as long as your marks in at least 2 of the graduate courses are above 80, and you also have your advisor feels you've made substantial progress towards your research, you can ask to transfer into the PhD program, in which case you don't defend a master's thesis, and you would transfer into the PhD program and start from there. So that's another possibility. Now there are several timelines and important dates that I would like you all to remember. At the beginning of the program, which is now, I would like you to go talk to your advisor and plan out which courses you're going to be taking. So if you look on the notice board outside the main office, you will see which courses are planned to be offered in the next 2 years. So you can see these are the graduate courses that are offered. Go talk to your advisor and say, okay, I plan to take these courses. And then make sure that they approve. Just come by and check with me to make sure that those courses will be accepted. Because sometimes your advisor might want you to take a course that he or she is teaching, but that might not be a graduate course. So you would have to take it for your research, but it may not count. So you might have to take an additional course. So for those reasons, you should really just check with me as well when you make a plan of study. Definitely meet with your research supervisor. When you meet with your research supervisor, have an understanding of what the expectations are. How often does your research supervisor need to meet with you, right? And how often do you need to meet with your research supervisor, right? So sometimes we'll say, some people might say, I need to meet you once a week. Okay, we will make an appointment, we will meet with you once a week. Other people, I need you to check in with me every day, right? it may not be a long meeting, it might be 5 minutes, tell me what you're doing, but I need you to check with me every day. So you should know what your advisor's expectations are. At the same time, you should also be aware, I mean, they should be aware of what you are comfortable doing, right? So meet with them. There is a nice manual here which gives tips on how you can approach your advisor. You know, how do you keep your program going. There are orientations. There's the GATA. GAT Academy was this morning. I hope some of you at least went to a couple of sessions, and if not, they will have another one in the winter, which is, I can't emphasize how wonderful those sessions are. And they also, you would also have the GATA orientation that's happening right after this session. Go to that, because otherwise you don't know, you don't learn anything if you don't know what it is, right? There's the mandatory training that you should complete. Once you complete it, send the certificate of completion to Kimberly so that the department has a record of your completion. Because if we don't get it, at some point HR will raise a problem with us and say we won't be allowed to pay you. So make sure that you get that done really quickly. Okay, so it's a legal requirement. And also if the health and safety training, so the health and safety training for theorists, of course, are going to be very different from experimentalists. So ask your research supervisor what additional health and safety training you need to complete. So for example, if you're in a laser lab, you'd have to complete the laser module. Whereas if you're in a theory group, you don't need to do that. So, and then a copy of that certificate of completion needs to be with the advisor as well. So make sure that you have, and what I would really recommend that you print out a copy and keep it in keep a file for your important documents and put it in that file, because you never know when you've changed a computer or you lost information on a computer, you don't have it, then you have at least that physical copy. You all have met Kimberly, and then the accounts, of course, once you register, you should have access to all your accounts, such as the library, and then once you get your student ID card, you should be able to check out books from the library. There's interlibrary loan, there's Racer, so there's a lot of resources available to you. The UNID and password really opens up all the learning management system, which is Blackboard for us, and everything else. Just one thing is that all communication, official communication with the university, with the professors, is supposed to be done through your University of Windsor account, not any other private account. So even if you have your account set up to be forwarding directly to your Gmail or whatever, make sure you're using your University of Windsor account, especially if you're asking for specific things, like if you want a leave of absence or something that needs grad studies approval, it should come from your University of Windsor account. Parking passes, lab keys, all the building keys, those are all with Kimberly. If you have office and computer equipment set up, you can basically get it done through the help desk. Some limited office supplies are available from the office. You can also get a printing, copying, scanning code for university purposes. Now, remember that you have to register for classes at the beginning of every semester, and you basically register through UWin's site. Have you both done registration already? You registered for your classes, awesome. And you have to be registered full-time in all 3 terms of the year, unless you apply for or are granted a leave of absence. So that's the only reason, and then registration is complete when you pay the fees. Now you can, in some cases, you can also choose to audit a course, which means the course will appear in your transcript, but there will not be any grade associated with it. So the advantages of taking a course for audit are, so for example, if you wanted to do a course on artificial intelligence, which will help your thesis research, but you don't want to get a mark in it because you're worried that it might, bring down your grade, then you could take it for audit. So it will still appear on your transcript, but it won't count towards your grade, and it won't count towards the official number of 3 courses that you're taking. But these 3 courses are only the minimum. You can take how much ever more you want. Okay? So in those cases, you basically register and then talk to the prof to change your status to audit. If you need a leave of absence, then you have to apply for this. There's a link, and so a leave of absence, I don't mean like going on a vacation, right? So what I mean is, if you say that I cannot be registered this semester and I cannot take classes, right? In that case, you have to apply for a leave of absence. If you want to go on a vacation, then remember that you're actually, there are you have to remember two parts of it. One, actually you have to remember three parts of it. The first part is it okay academically? Okay, so that means you register for courses, there is the fall break week, and you say, okay, I want to take a vacation that fall break week. It's okay academically, because there are no classes. But you have to think about two other things. One is the GA-TA was a part of it. The GA-TA part of it, if you're assigned to do some kind of course development, for example. So in that case, that might have to happen during the fall break. And so if you are signed up to do something like that, you may not be able to go on vacation at that time. The third part you have to think about is your research. And so the fall holidays, like the fall break, are the time when you can actually get a lot of work done in the lab. And so at that time, if you want to take a vacation, you really need to discuss it with your advisor much before the actual, you actually make plans. Because, I mean, yeah, as I said, fall break and winter breaks, these are the time when you actually get work done. And if you're completely off at that time, then you may not be progressing towards your research. Fees, again, by students. To apply for a GA, basically you make the application. You've done this already, I assume, so you're good. If sometimes your advisor might say, I need you to take a course in engineering or biology or whatever else, and this is for your research. In that case, what you can do is to ask that that course be counted towards your degree. And the way you do that is by making a course substitution request. The best thing to do is, as soon as your advisor says it, make the request. Okay, so essentially the way you do it is you go online onto UWin's site. There's a course substitution request under services, and then you would say, I want this course to count as one of my 8,000 level physics, 8,000 level courses, right? And then you would put in a small justification letter. That would come, and then you tell Kimberly that you've done this, right? So then Kimberly basically sends it to me, and then I say, I talk to the advisor, and I say, okay, your student is asking for this course substitution request. Why is this? Do you need this? Do you require this? And so the advisor sends a note saying, yes, we want, this is why we want this person to take the letter. Now, sometimes the advisor might ask for a 4,000 level course from another department, or a 4,000 level course from our own department to count. And if that's a 4,000 level, that's an undergraduate course typically, right? So if the advisor requires that, then we have to justify why should this be counted as equivalent to a graduate course. What more work are you going to be doing, for example? Or if you're taking a course in another department like signal processing, you could say, well, for a physics student, signal processing will be the same effort as a graduate level course, because they have to work extra hard. So whatever it is that your advisor says is we are able to justify that this is a graduate level course, we will take all those, I will put that into the documentation, send the approval, it goes to grad studies, the grad studies has to approve it. So, but the latest you can get permission for this is the 2 weeks into the course you started taking the course, right? So if you haven't obtained permission within 2 weeks of taking that class, then that may not be counted towards your courses. It will still appear on your transcript, but it won't count as the 3 graduate courses. Does that make sense? Yeah, any questions about that part? I mean, does everybody understand what I'm saying? Okay. Same thing with either grad courses or undergraduate courses. Always the last 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of class, by that time you should do any changes to registration, add, drop, etc. Okay, so at the end of the first term, you are required to form a thesis committee. So this will have your advisor, and then it will have one outside department reader, another reader within the department. And those are the three people who you get basically talk to your advisor and say, find out who those three people should be, ask them, get their signatures on a form, scan it, upload it. Okay, and then let Kimberly know that you've done it, and then Kimberly basically says, you know, it comes to me, and then I hit the approval for that. Now, so usually it's a good idea it's always a good idea to talk to your advisor before you form a committee. And so the purpose of the committee is to make sure that you have enough support towards the progress of your research. And also, quite often the committee members are people who would give you letters of reference when you graduate. So they should know what you're doing as well. Annually, we want you to schedule a meeting with the research supervisor and the grad coordinator. So that means you basically set up a meeting. Usually you do two things. One is an annual report. So an annual report is something that you're obligated to submit, and we've put this in a file. It has sections that both you do, and then the graduate advisor puts in as well. In this, you basically say, this is how I've made progress towards my degree. I've taken all these courses. I don't have any more courses to take. This is what I've accomplished towards my research. Either I've identified the problem, or I've taken these measurements, or I've written a paper, whatever it is that you've done. And then I expect to graduate at this time, or I expect to defend my thesis at this time. So you write that, and then your advisor makes comments. This is a way that we are making sure. One of the most common things we see is that the student expects, oh, I'm going to be done at the end of April. And the advisor says, no, you're not nowhere near done. I expect it to be at least August. Right? So just to make sure that both the students and the advisor are on the same page, that's why we have you do the scheduling annual meeting, and then the department knows when you're ready to graduate. Okay, so we want to make sure that all students graduate in a timely fashion. We already talked about the transfer to a PhD program. The other thing that you should do is to consider applying for conferences. So usually in January or February, there will be a call for conference abstracts. You talk to your advisor and ask, can I go to any conference? And usually, when you go to a conference, you're expected to present something. So something that's related to your research. And if you're presenting something, you can get conference funding from a variety of sources. So there's a whole bunch of information on that here. And then before you plan to graduate, you make sure that you've taken all the courses, make sure you've scheduled a thesis committee meeting, submit your chapters. And, so when you submit a thesis, you don't just submit one final version to your advisor. You actually start submitting chapters at least 6 months ahead of time before you plan to graduate, and then the advisor gives you feedback so that you revise your chapters, and then you have a thesis that you actually defend. Okay, so you submit several drafts of your thesis before you actually submit a final thesis to the committee. One of the most important things is that any draft that you submit to your committee, if there is plagiarism found in that really is a big deal. It can get you into a lot of trouble, and it can get the advisor into a lot of trouble. So make sure your drafts are plagiarism free. And plagiarism, I don't mean purposely copying, but that you actually cite it correctly, that you know how to cite. All those things you should have figured out beforehand. If you have questions about citations and plagiarism, please come and talk to me. I'm happy to help. Or I can provide you with resources as well on that. And then you have to apply to graduate. Make sure you're giving a thesis seminar every year, at least one every year. And then all these will come later when you're ready to graduate. For UWindsor student, this is basically the procedure that you should follow for the service requests. In terms of coursework requirements, right? So I told you that the Advanced Quantum Theory 1 has to be completed in the first semester to continue in the program. You must register for seminars every semester, every fall and winter. In your research, if you're in the research programs, you should register for all the research courses. And if you need any accommodation for either health or bereavement or other extenuating circumstances, then the first thing to do is actually talk to your advisor and to all your class committee members. Right, I mean, not your committee members, but your course instructors. So talk to them and explain to them that this is a situation that you have, and you need accommodation for that. Right? People are willing to help as long as you ask for the help. Like they can't help you if they don't know you need help. Okay, so that's one of the things. There's regulations regarding this. There's also, if you have a chronic disability or a chronic illness, so some examples we've had are Crohn's disease, ADHD, we've had depression, social anxiety. There's a whole bunch of diseases which are not visible to the eye. It's not like somebody, is blind or doesn't have, one of the other physical disabilities. So all those are considered disabilities. And if you have a disability, then within the first 2 weeks of class, or as early as you can, you should go talk to the disabilities, student accessibility services people with a letter from your doctor saying that you're under care, so that the course instructors as well as your advisor can provide you with accommodations. But the sooner you do it, the better. Don't wait, and don't hesitate to take advantage of that if you need it. How is the graduate program evaluated? That's listed in this PDF. It has a nice chart that you can find out how to calculate your GPA and so on. Now, if you have a grade and then you want to appeal the grade because you think it's not a fair assessment of your abilities, then there's a process for that as well. So you can make the informal process where you just go talk to your advisor and say, I think this is why I think I should get a better grade, or I should have another chance to complete the assignment. Whatever it is that you want, way you want to appeal the grade. But if that doesn't work, you can also formally appeal the grade. And this is the process for that. Only courses that have any course that has in which you get a 70% or higher is counted towards graduate credit. And this is absolutely definite for any course that is required. So in Quantum 1, you have to have 70% or above to have it count towards credit. If you have one course in where you get below 70, for example, you asked for some accommodation, the advisor or the instructor gave you some accommodation, but that was insufficient, and you ended up with a grade between 60 and 70, then the department may recommend to consider that grade as for graduate credit. It will still appear in your transcript, but as long as it's not a required course or a major paper, thesis, or dissertation. For those, you have to meet the 70%. Okay. If you don't get graduate credit in a course, which means that you're getting less than 70%, you can repeat it once only. And that is, again, if it is at the discretion of the program. You cannot replace it with another course. Okay, so that grade will not be replaced by another course. Minimum GPA is 70%, and then this has a little exercise to show you how to calculate the GPA. If you have more than one course in which you get less than 70%, then the department might recommend that you withdraw from the program. The academic integrity is really, really important at the graduate level, even more so at the undergraduate level. So please pay attention to that, and then there's lots of resources that you can access as well. For research, you have to register for the research course every semester. The MSc thesis and major papers are given a numerical grade. So this has to be more than 70% to get credit for it. You choose your research supervisor at the beginning of the program. The research topic you choose should be done with the research supervisor, because the supervisor is an expert in certain areas, and they are able to give you a certain research topic that they can supervise you in. This is even more important if you're being supported by a research assistantship, because the research assistantship comes from a grant which has a certain certain things, that certain deliverables that have to happen. So your research might have to be working towards that goal of that grant as well. Complete your mandatory training. That's very important. Have your dissertation committee that happens before December. Complete your annual report every month, every year, not every month. If you're a PhD student, then you have to sign up for the PhD qualifying exam within 1 year of becoming a PhD student. And then again, you have to be aware of ethical standards of research. So again, there are many resources to learn about this, and if you have any questions, you can feel free to come and talk to me. Again, in your research and presentation, so when you present your research, either when you write your thesis or you're giving a talk at a conference or just giving a seminar talk, you have to make sure that your work is scholarly, it is cited properly, and you have integrity when you're presenting that. Don't claim somebody else's work as your own, give credit where it's due, and so on. Okay, so this is, there are other resources for graduate students. Most of you will, if you're planning to develop a career inside the academy, then you want to really develop your teaching skills. And if you want to develop your career outside the academy, then you want other things as well, like social networking, professional skills. So usually it's a good idea to develop all those skills, because your doors are wide open, so you have a wide range of choices as to where you will go. And there are lots of opportunities for professional development that I would encourage you. And leadership is very important for scholarships as well. So if you're planning on applying for any scholarships, then please do sign up for leadership positions. So it could be serving on the departmental council, for example. So that's one way you could get leadership experience. Or you could work with a physics club. You could do outreach. There's lots of things that you could do for that. There are some service opportunities that you can have, again, which help you with your scholarship applications. Ooh. I don't know what this is doing. The Grad Student Society is basically official representative of the grad students at the University of Windsor, and we have several links on this. Okay, so I think that's about, there's some resources for international students that some of you may be interested in, and apart from that, post-graduation, you can come to this later. So this is sort of the gist of the Grad Handbook. I'm sure there's much more information in this. I'll send this to you, and then you can ask questions when you need it. So I'll stop there, and I'll just ask if you have any questions that I can answer now, but you always know where to find me. My office is in 277-3, so just shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to answer anything. Are there any burning questions that I can answer for now? We're all good. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks for coming, and please do consider going to the GATA orientation that's taking place soon. Thanks. Bye.